last few years, so it's
That,
good.
that's actually good. So,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to start now.
All right, great.
Hi, my name is Kevin McDonald, and I'm declaring my independence. Independence from what? Why, negative
Few
thoughts and
years,
energy,
so
of course.
it's good.
But chief among them, hate,
That's actually
division, and fear. You see, I know that we're all one, and together we can solve any problem, save our planet and each other. Please, join me as we come together as one and choose a better way to be. So now, let's begin with my independence report.
Oh no! Oh, there you are, and welcome to my. Oh goodness gracious! Welcome to my Independence Report. My name is Kevin McDonald, and we're talking today for the entire hour with, and she's got an absolutely fascinating story that we're going to talk a great deal about. She's got a book coming out, and the name of the book, I love the title. I'll let you have that privilege. What's the name of the title of the book?
Hi, Kevin. Name of my book is called Beautiful Possibilities.
By Jennifer Benson.
Right.
And it is, I was reading your bio and what you sent me about your life, and you use a particular phrase that I really like when you talk about your inner self and the communication that you get. What do you call that?
I've been calling that my inner ding, my inner ding voice.
My inner ding voice. I love that because that inner voice took you on a worldwide tour of all over the place, and we're going to get into that. But I'd like to know, when you talk about your inner ding, what does that mean to you?
Well, I originally got that, Kevin, from an affirmation from Louise Hay years and years ago, probably like back in the 80s. I discovered it. And she just, you talk about this inner voice that guides your life. And you can say it's coming from a higher power, if it's coming from God or whatever. But yeah, that's where I got that years ago. And it really stuck with me. And I've used it ever since. And I've used it now in my book as well. And of course, I gave credit to Louise Hay, but that little phrase has really kind of guided my life, probably definitely at least for the last 20 years, especially on my journey overseas and back. So, yeah, it's a very strong voice.
So when you hear this voice, what distinguishes it from I don't know, your imagination or something else?
Yeah.
You notice?
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, the ding starts with this. I was working in upstate New York as a teacher, and I had this, basically it's like a dissatisfaction with life. And I think that's where it starts with, that's how it started with me anyway. Like, I was not fulfilled, and I was in this college relationship that had been going on for 10 years. And I had just started a new teaching job at a different school, and it was really stressful. And I think it just starts with that, oh, I don't know if I can see myself in the same situation the rest of my life, and I was 30 at the time, and I really had a hard time picturing myself being in that same relationship, teaching in that same school. And I think I just started asking, okay, universe, is this it? And do I need to make a change? And that's kind of how it all started. So I would say it starts with a dissatisfaction or just not being fulfilled or a lack of something. And I couldn't even quite put my finger on it, really, but that's where I started for me.
A lot of people would call that a midlife crisis, but 30 is young for that, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah.
But it's interesting because that led you. Now, first of all, I have to say that, and we're gonna detail your story and go through it a little bit. But you have incredible intestinal. You got a lot of guts.
Thanks.
To be able to do what you did, because tell us that you made the decision that you were going to leave the school, and you were also going to leave one of the 50 ways to leave your lover, and you were going to go do that, and you were going to go overseas. Where did you pick to go overseas?
Well, originally it started with my sister. She was over teaching in Kuwait at the time in the Middle East, and really was liking it. She had went to a job fair in Washington, D.C. the year prior, and she really liked it. So she had been there for a few months, and she was sending home these postcards and these like pictures of trips to Dubai and other things that she was doing. And it just sparked something in me. And I think and I guess eventually when I was questioning, okay, universe, what do you want me to do? Show me some signs if I need to make a change. And lo and behold, an opening came up at her school, and she asked, if you're interested, I can forward your resume on to our Noreen, our director, and then she'll take it from there. But yeah, I didn't really give it too long of a thought. I'm like, okay, I'm going to send this in. If I get selected, that's great. If not, then it's not for me.
Well, and I like to say there are no coincidences. So
Right.
that was not just that was part of the plan, as it
Right.
were, put together by the other side. So when you got over there and you were teaching over there, what did you like it better over there? Was it different? Did you feel more fulfilled?
Yeah, I did. And I mean, I stayed there for 13 years between Kuwait and Qatar. And the kids are it was actually international schools. So the kids are from over 20 different countries. And they're very respectful of teachers. I have to say that. And I find the parents to be I shouldn't say more respectful, but I find them to be a lot more, I think, respectful of the profession in general. And they were just wonderful to work with. And it really opened your mind about what's out there in the world. I was living in a culture dominated by a religion that I didn't really know anything about. And we really had to follow the societal norms and the religious norms, and especially of the Ramadan and different holidays. So, and basically, after, I remember our first week of orientation, the director said, you will follow the rules of this country and the customs. And if you don't like it, you don't have to stay, and we knew that going in, that we would have to do that. But quite frankly, I loved my time there, and I loved the differences, and I loved having that different perspective in life. I think I needed it. I came from a really small hometown. I think I needed to open my eyes a little bit and see some of the world. It was good for me. Yeah.
What did your parents say when you said, hey, I'm picking up and I'm going elsewhere?
Well, that was part of the inner ding too, not to listen to everybody else, because I had a lot of teachers coming up to me at school, the school that I was leaving in New York to go over there. Are you crazy? What do your parents think? And then my parents, my sister had already been over there, so they were kind of used to it. But then having both their daughters there, yeah, they were not happy about it. Definitely. I think over time they got used to it. But yeah, I had family members. Pretty much, I think I only had one or two people that were really completely supportive. It's not like you're going to Europe, you're going to the Middle East, and yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but now I've never been to the Middle East, and I've also never been a woman, at least in this lifetime. and so I can't imagine what it's like going over to the Middle East and being a woman. Did you have to wear the head garments and all of that?
Hijab? No, I didn't. Not in Kuwait or Qatar. The only country you really have to do that is Saudi, and they actually have international schools where you have to at least wear the black dress, the hijab. But I didn't have to do that. We had to wear skirts below the knee, and we had to wear, our shirts below the shoulders, covering the shoulders. But really, you could wear pants with a short sleeve shirt. So I guess there wasn't really that many dress code restrictions. If I went to the beach, and there are beaches in Kuwait, I would go on the women's only day, so I could wear my bathing suit. But yeah, you just have to kind of adjust your lifestyle a little bit,
They have a woman's only day?
Yeah, they do.
So it's not like there are lots of bars that have got women get in free day. This is different. This is women only day.
Yeah. But I think it's because, they can wear what they want to wear in public, and not have to worry about wearing their black abaya, and their, if maybe, I know the Kuwaiti women would wear the abaya, which is the dress, and the hijab is a scarf. So if you go beach day, you can kind of wear what you're going to wear, and you don't have to worry about being in front of men. So it gives them the freedom to be able to wear what they want to wear, which I actually liked after a while, because, it's not very comfortable going to the beach and not being able to wear beach clothing when it's 115 degrees over there. So it's a little tough. So you just go on those days. You just have to make adjustments, and
now, what are the difference between American men and Middle Eastern men. Is there a lot of difference between the two?
I never really got to know any per se because, they really tend to, the men that I knew over there were fathers of the kids that I taught, and they were already in families, and they were very polite to me, very nice. You didn't really see them too much. They would come to conferences and stuff. Like I said, they were very polite. There would be men that I would meet out, like say you would go to Starbucks or to the malls or whatever, and they would probably keep to themselves quite a bit. So there really wasn't a lot of interaction between me as an expat and a woman and between the local men there. They might follow you around, some of them, maybe out of curiosity and stare, I don't know. I remember one time I went to Starbucks and it was on a kind of weekend, and I remember going there to do some schoolwork, and an Arab man was sitting across from me, and he was reading a newspaper, and he kept peeking around at me. And I'm like, well, this is going to be interesting. So, I mean, I've had some different experiences, but, I've had some weird experiences here with guys. So, but like I said, it's just different. I think it's more out of curiosity. Yeah. It wasn't anything major.
Oh, that's good. So you're over there and you're teaching and you're settling in, and at one point you get married. Who did you marry over there?
Well, my sister was, when I went over there my first year, my sister was finishing up. They have 2-year contracts. So she was finishing up her second year. So we got to have that time together. She was a middle school French teacher. She went back to Albany, New York after she was done. And the guy that took her place was from Fort St. John, Canada. And he and I started dating. He took over my sister's job. And it's like, I can't make this stuff up. It's crazy.
That worked
So
out
we did.
well.
It did. We dated for 3 years, and then we ended up getting married. And yeah, so wonderful person. Yeah.
In your life, you had a epiphany that sent you. By the way, we're talking with Jennifer Benson. She's written a book that we're going to talk a little bit more about. But there's something that I really wanted to talk to you about, and that is. You go over there, and then at one point in time, you decide, hey, I have an idea. Let's go on vacation. And you end up in Thailand on vacation. And tell us that story.
Yeah, I would love to. David and I went to Thailand. It was December in 2004 for our vacation. And we'd been there before a few times. Thailand's an easy 6-hour flight, cheaper country to go to. So a lot of teachers go there. So we were in Krabi, which is one of the provinces down south, one of the islands. And basically we woke up late one morning. Thank God that we did. We're usually early risers. The couple of days prior, we had been out kayaking to these little tiny islands out in the ocean. But that particular day, by the grace of God, I guess you could say, we woke up late. We hurried down there to the beach, so we could go kayaking again. And basically what happened, we were having breakfast. The waves started rolling back out into the water, like receding out. And David went over to talk to somebody at the dive shop on the beach. So I was sitting there by myself, and I'm like, something's not right. And then, I could sense that. I'm like, is there a beached animal? Like, did something happen? Is somebody hurt? But the water just kept receding back. When I finally looked at the water, you just know, what is that? I didn't have any idea what had happened. And then since I was at a restaurant, there were some Thai waitresses behind me, and they started holding on to each other, and they were crying. It's almost like they had this, this premonition that something was wrong as well, but nobody knew what to say or do, because we didn't know there had been a tsunami, there hadn't like an earthquake. So people actually started walking toward it, and walking out toward the stranded boats in the sand, and walking out toward where the water had gone. And I'm like, okay, I'm curious, but I'm definitely not that curious. I just had this sense of danger. I just knew something was not right. But the Thai people had never had that before, so they didn't know either. And as expats, there was a bunch of us on the beach. We're all standing there looking at, and I have pictures of it on my website, standing there just looking at this. Finally, this dive instructor came out. What happened is the water receded out, and then the first wave out of 3 came gushing toward us. And then we kind of figured something was not right. And then a dive instructor was the only one that knew what it was. She came out of her shop and happened to see it. Thank God she did. And she said to Ron, get out of here. It's a tsunami. You got to get out of here now. And yeah, so we ran for higher ground, and basically we made it out, but we literally, we're just outrunning the darn thing.
Now, this is for those of you that aren't aware, I believe this is the tsunami that killed 250,000 people.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was a horrible time. And you're right. It's for those that are on the beach and the water unexpectedly starts to recede and goes back into the ocean, and there's dry land there. Don't stay there, because that's a tsunami that's about ready to come in. So you went into higher ground. Were you able to get there before the waters caught up to you?
Well, yeah, but I knew what was happening. I could hear people screaming behind me and things breaking. I didn't dare turn around. And I remember kind of freaking out and telling David, just go on without me. I can't do this, because I felt like it was just like one of those nightmares where you feel like no matter what you do, I felt like no matter what I was going to do, I felt like I could die. And I just almost was so scared that I couldn't run. And David kind of grabbed my hand. He said, "Oh no, get going." Thank God for David, because I think my legs just turned into mush. I mean, you never know when you're in that situation, how your body's going to react. And my body did not hold up that well, kind of let me down, but David, really kind of grabbed my hand, and we just ran up to a safe place up where our hotel was, actually. So we kind of knew the pathway up to the hotel, because our hotel was high up. So we were lucky in that regard, and a lot of people did make it up there. A lot of people didn't make it up there, and they were the ones doing what David and I had been doing, kayaking that morning, or they were out. There was a couple big boat excursions that would take you out to see a couple of the little islands, and those people never made it back, because when the tsunami comes in, there's nowhere to go when you're on these little islands exploring. So there were posters all over Crabby with missing people, that didn't make it out off those boat tours. That was one of the biggest, I guess the biggest ways, that people were killed in our particular area, was the people that were missing that might have been on those boat tours and stuff.
And some of those boats actually ended up on other coasts of other countries, 3 or 4 months later. And some ended up in California.
Wow.
I can't imagine. Kind of describe for us what it's like. I know I know your legs were like it was like they are in the horror movies, and it's always the girl who falls down and can't get up, and so that happened to you. But what's it like? I assume all the services were out, the TV was out, and the cell phones were out, so you couldn't really communicate. But in your area, how many people died?
I'm not sure exactly how many people died. Now, right nearby was Phuket, and Phuket, I know, had a lot of bodies that people that died. I know they had thousands and thousands, and I don't know the exact number, but I know that it was so bad. They had one mass grave over there, and I remember buying a newspaper after it happened, and I still have it. They had one mass grave for all the bodies found on the beach in Phuket, which is also southern Thailand. And I know I saw pictures that they had to bring in a lot of dry ice to lay on top of the grave to keep the smell away from the town. I mean, it's a very touristy area, so yeah, I think that they got hit a lot harder, depending on where we were in Thailand. And then, of course, Sri Lanka and Indonesia were hit even harder than Thailand, I think. So, yeah, I mean, we were lucky. Where we were, the land was landlocked, so the beach was not so exposed. I guess I want to say. It was kind of like a little inlet, but some of the areas that were more exposed, like Phuket, and for example, some beaches in Phuket, they were wide open. There's so much massive exposure that I think they had a lot more deaths than where we were, I think. But yeah, everything was out. The electric was out. We barely knew what was happening. The Thai people were walking around with life preservers on after that, because they were thinking that they didn't want to be caught up in something, because they were thinking aftershocks. And we heard all these rumors of the massive aftershocks. We stayed up on the hill for hours and hours. And then we couldn't even, basically for days, we finally, of course, went to our hotel, but we couldn't get a hold of our family to let them know. They didn't know if we were alive or not. The boats were all destroyed. Those are the little wooden boats with the car motor on the back. They were all up in the trees and they were all destroyed. So people were just literally. We went down to survey the damage. Later, I think the next day, and people are just standing on the beach wanting the heck out of there. And they were waiting for boats and waiting and waiting. I think like within a day or two, they were able to get small groups back over to the mainland to get to the airport. Yeah. So we ended up staying a little bit longer than that because it was a vacation. We had, and we didn't want to deal with the craziness of trying to get out. So we stayed till the end of the week, and then we were able to get back to Bangkok again. But yeah.
Wow, that's a story of a lifetime. It's not a good story by any means, but it's one of the. So at what point in all of this did your inner ding say, "Get the hell out of here"?
Yeah. Well, I think it was when the dive instructor came out and I saw the look on her face. I think it finally, of course, then she said it out, and I think, and then part of too, it was not only that, like I knew I had to run to get to safety. There was a part of me that was questioning even a little bit at the time. I'd been overseas for a couple years and I was thinking, oh my gosh, this way of living could be crazy. Am I sure I want to keep doing this? So yeah, the inner ding voice just kind of just keeps popping in all the time. I thought I was only going to go over there for a couple years, and no, and then yeah, we finally went to Bangkok, but and the inner ding voice kicked in again. And in a way, it was like I needed to protect myself. I stayed in the hotel, and it was time to go back to Kuwait. I didn't like to go out too much. I think it was a little bit of aftershock trauma type thing that went on. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it was just crazy, But.
Did you guys or anybody else that you knew? Were there people that disappeared that you knew that never came back?
Well, we had a friend, we didn't have anything like that, but we had a friend that was in Sri Lanka and, that little island down below India. And he was in the second story, and they got hit a lot harder than we did. He wrote us days later and asked if we were okay. And David was asking him. He said, no joke. He goes, I was sleeping. I woke up and I had water on the floor of my hotel room. And he goes, and I was on the second floor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they had a boat there. Luckily, were able to get him out, but I think they woke him up and got him out. But yeah, it came in so fast. It wasn't like, he didn't even know about it. He slept in late. The tsunami happened like 8 a.m. So, this guy was a late sleeper, and he's like, I woke up and yeah, my things are floating in my room. So yeah. Oh my God.
A hell of a dream right there.
Yeah.
So that now how did that affect you and affect your life overall?
Well, I think you look back on those things in your life, and we had a little bit of the survivor's guilt. We went back to Kuwait, and we were actually on a TV show in Kuwait. One of David taught high school math. One of his students' fathers, of course, owned a TV show in Kuwait. We went on there, and he asked us about survivor's guilt. And, and I didn't really think about it until then. I hadn't really heard of it because I was never really in a disaster like that before. But I had that. I had a little bit of the survivor's guilt. Like, why did I live? Not, you think about, why was I meant to live? What was what was the purpose of that? And well, one of the biggest things I realized is that, okay, after something like that, I'm pretty sure that I can handle anything life throws at me, and it made me quite strong in that regard. I'm like, okay, if I can handle this, which I did, and David did, I think we can handle just about anything that comes along our way. It's not, I think it just shows you how resilient you are and you can get over it. And we've gone back to Thailand many times since then. I didn't think I'd ever go back because I was so scared from it, and that's another way of healing. It's like you don't, these type of things, you just don't, they don't keep you down. You have this survivor spirit. We all have it. And it makes you stronger. You're like, okay, I got through that. Wow, that was awesome. I'm glad I got through it. That's awesome that I survived. But
Oh yeah. Well, it was quite an episode for you. And so you went back to teaching, and how long did you stay in Kuwait from there?
Well, I stayed 6 more years. I was there for 8 years total. And eventually, teachers tend not to stay in Kuwait too long. The salary is not quite as high as some of the other countries. And teachers always dream of, the next best, greatest thing. So a lot of them want to go to China, Japan, I'm trying to think of some other places, Singapore, Europe. It was a stepping point, for a lot of teachers. And they're like, okay, I'm done my 2 years. I'm getting out of here. Where Dave and I actually stayed 8. We enjoyed our time there and stuff. So, and then it was time to move on. I think we had been there long enough, and we ended up transferring down into Qatar. And I worked at a military boys' school there for my first year. And it was basically a school. I call it a naughty boy school. I shouldn't call it that, but it's a place where parents go to send their boys to kind of get them sorted out a little bit. So that was in grades 6 through 12. And it was, like I said, they stayed there during the week, run like a military type school, and then they would go home on the weekend. But yeah.
Oh, wow. So when did the ding come back that decided that it was time for you to come home?
It's a good question. Well, I know, like that first year at that school was really tough. The boys were a little bit challenging for me, and being a woman in Qatar, I found at times was even harder than I found it to be in Kuwait. Kuwait's been established a lot longer, and it seemed like there was just more, I don't know, the attitude toward women was a little bit more relaxed, where in Qatar, I found it a little bit more traditional. And I don't know, I think, the boys were a challenge to teach, and I had a couple bad experiences there. And one time I was out running, and I wore complete covered up sweatpants, shirt, long sleeve shirt. And I was on my way back. We had a compound with a gate. Excuse me. And some boys they saw me on their bicycles. They're older boys in their teens. And I saw them, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be trouble. And I've never had this happen my whole time in the Middle East, but they chased after me. And luckily I got back to my compound, and I'm banging on the big door. They're like 1 story high, these big doors to get into where I live. And the guard wasn't there. I think he was in the bathroom. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm banging and banging and banging on these doors, and they caught up with me, and they were calling me kind of some nasty little names and some grabbing at me. And it was not one of my best days there. And the guy finally came in and opened the door, and I got in there. But I think that you have a little bit of these moments. I think a week later, it was my 40th birthday, and I was sitting in an Indian restaurant over there. And I'm like, all right, I'm turning 40. Now's the time. Do I want to keep doing this or not? Do I want to keep staying overseas? Now I'm married to David. I kind of felt a little stuck. I felt like David wanted to be here overseas forever, make a career out of it. And I thought I did 8 years ago, but then 8 years goes by, and, so the ding started kicking in at that restaurant that night when I turned 40. It really kicked in pretty loud.
So it was time to move back. And did you resume teaching back here? What did you do?
Well, I actually stayed in Qatar 4 more years first, because I really wanted to make sure it wasn't just that one incident of getting grabbed, or it wasn't just my 40th birthday. I wanted to make sure. So I stayed 4 more years, and it was hard. It was just, obviously it was very clear to me that I need to move home. And I finally made that decision to come home. And unfortunately, David wanted to stay overseas, and I wanted to come home. And like I said, it was kind of got to the point where it was either he or I, and I came home, and he's like, okay, well, if it's meant to be, we'll work it out. And Yeah, 4 years later, we got divorced, unfortunately. He's in the Philippines now, and he bought a house, and he's really happy, and I'm happy for him, and I'm really happy. So it's sad in a way, but we kind of both had to do what we had to do, unfortunately.
Sometimes when you're in the course of your life, people come into it and then they go out of it, and there's a reason why
Right.
that happens. And it'd be nice to assume that we're going to be married, to the same person for our whole lives. But a lot of times people change and circumstances change, and in order to follow your ding, I like that.
Right.
In order to follow your passion, you've got to live in a way that makes you happy.
You
And
do. And you got to be true to yourself. And toward the end, David didn't really like the person I was becoming. He's like, "You are nothing like the person I married." And I'm like, "I know. I was just," and I remember him saying a lot of times, David would say, "You can be happy anywhere, John, if you really put your mind to it." And I tried, and I did that for, like I said, I was overseas 13 years. And I think you can only do that though for so long. And eventually I had to come to terms with making that choice to go home. But I didn't want to make the choice because I knew he and I wouldn't survive it. So I put it off as long as I could. And yeah.
so
And
when he says that you changed a lot in those years, how did you change?
well, I wasn't interested in going out with friends. I mean, everything about my life overseas really revolved around work. Like you work at an international school, your friends are from the international school. My husband, David, he worked at the same school as me in the same department. And then I worked out, I did exercise, that was at school. And other than that, I think I became a lot more, I stayed home a lot more. I wasn't as vibrant. I didn't associate with friends as much. I think I kind of fell into that depression where I just sat around at the house and sat around on the couch, and I just wasn't as happy. I wasn't as joyful, and just became a lot more. There's a few things that happened over there that kind of put a little bit of fear in me. And I was also really homesick and talked about, missing things that happened with my mom and dad. They were getting to be towards 70. And I'm like, I felt like there's just this clock ticking that I felt like I needed to get home, and I didn't know why, but I needed to get back home, and there was this urgency. And that's part of the inner ding too, is that you start feeling this urgency that I'm either missing out on something or something's going to happen down the road and I need to be home. And that kind of did happen. And I finally went to I was going to go to the psychologist, I guess, in Qatar to get actually some type of depression medicine because I was so depressed at the time. And I was really toying with the idea of making the choice to go home. And he wouldn't give it to me. He's like, "You need to make this choice. I'm going to give you the choice right now, Jennifer. I'm giving you the choice to go home. Can you make this choice? I'm giving you permission." And I'm like, "Okay." Yeah, he gave me the permission to make the choice. It was something I could never do for myself. And I started crying. I'm like, "Thank you." I think I was just looking for somebody to say it's okay to go home if you want to go home.
Well, yeah. I mean, because your whole life. Well, first of all, I can't imagine being chased by a bunch of teenage kids and stuff. And also, you don't know anytime you would leave the house and leave the compound, as it were, which was safe.
Right.
Leave the compound, and you don't know what's going to be out there for you, and it can be a very dangerous place.
And it was harder I shouldn't say, but it was a little bit harder for a woman, being a woman, because with David, he could go out anywhere, and, I think it would be safer for him. Whereas with women, you do have to really think twice about pretty much everything you do outside your compound and outside the school. So between home and school, there's not much of a life. You can or you have a cab take you to the mall and pick you up, but that's really about the extent of it. And that gets old after a while. So there's no regrets. It was the hardest decision, but it was the best decision I ever made. I guess you can say
Well,
that.
it was your inner ding
Yeah,
following that again,
that's
and
right.
that's led you. So now you're back in the States now, and you're what are you doing now?
Well, I'm still an English as a second language teacher. That's what I was doing overseas. So I get to work with all the great, kiddos that come from different countries into New York, and they all have various levels of English, and I get to work with all different levels, K through 12. So I'm doing that. My book, I started writing a book again. And once I came home, I built my foundation again. I was around family and nature, and I started feeling better about myself. And I started writing. I looked at my old journals from over there and the few that I did have, and I started writing. And then one thing led to another. And 3 years later, I wrote my memoirs about all my experiences over there and kind of what happened, what life was like as an expat and a woman, and coming back home again.
What would you like people to get out of the book when they read it?
I think the biggest thing about it, a book always has like an arc, like a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think my biggest thing is I want people to know to listen to that inner ding voice. And also another thing, my book is about how I made that decision to go overseas, what life was like for 13 years, and how I made that big decision to come home. And I was like 45 at the time. But the funny thing about life, I think that I want people to know as well, is that sometimes life has such bigger plans for us than what we have. Like I never would have thought I would go to the Middle East, not in my college years, not in my 20s. That never was a plan. I thought I was going to get married. My father always harped on me, you're going to find your guy in college, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, you're going to have a nice house. It just never happened for me. And it was okay. And I'm glad it didn't happen and it didn't work out with that first boyfriend there, because the universe had these huge different plans for me. And I'm so glad I listened to that ding and took the leap, looked for the signs that it was, yes, I was meant to go. And the same thing happened again when I was ready to come back home again. I think listening to the inner voice, finding times during the day that are quiet where you can hear it, and look for the green lights, ask for the signs, and look for the green lights, look for things lining up. And also you'll know that, I think it's right when you're excited about it and it's something that drives your curiosity, and, like take a chance, look for the signs and take the leap.
There's some people that are real happy in the picket fence and the house and the two kids and the dog and the cat and the husband.
Yeah.
And to live their whole life that way. But for somebody like I'm still, the school is still out on whether or not that's the best way to approach life, because we're here for such a short time, and we have the opportunity to learn so much and to do so much and to experience so much. Looking back on it, would you change anything?
I wouldn't. And sometimes we want to know how life is going to turn out. Oh my God, I can't take this risk because I need to know how it's all going to play out, steps A through Z. And you don't need to know that. The only thing that I knew was that I was going to take 2 years and go abroad. I even had a leave from my school. If it didn't work out, they were going to take me back. And I didn't have to have it all played out. But if I had known up front that, that I would meet David and I would get divorced and I had to deal with tough decisions down the road, I might not have gone. So it's like, it's good that you don't know. It's good that you don't have it all figured out, because you only have to worry about like this moment, and yeah, and the white picket fence and the house and everything. It just wasn't in the cards for me this lifetime around. I always say in all my past lives, I raised a bunch of kids, and I think this time I only wanted to teach them. That's what I always tell people. I already raised truckloads of kids, I feel like, and I love teaching. And it's good that David and I didn't have kids, because it would have made it harder to come home. I think I would have been in the Philippines right now raising kids. My parents are 75, and I think I would have been very unhappy. And and I'm glad that in a way that didn't happen, because it gave me the freedom to be authentic and to come home and to be true to myself and to be with my family.
And to write a beautiful book. The title of the book again is
Beautiful Possibilities. Yeah.
And which is what it is Beautiful Possibilities. And when is that going to be published?
Well, I'm looking at toward the latter part of this year. Yeah. And right now I have a website. I'm on Facebook. So yeah. So
what's your website?
So it's www.jenniferbensonauthor.com.
And they can go there and find out more about who you really are.
That's right.
Now, is the ding still happening for you, and where do you see yourself going in the future?
The ding is still happening. I'm not sure what's going to happen with my career. If I were to teach the rest of my life, I'd be fine with it. But I'm going to wait and see what happens with this memoir. I would love to do speaking engagements and talks about, especially with divorced women, about starting over again. Because 4 years later, David asked for a divorce. We saw each other once in a while in the summers, never made it, never worked out. And I think I went and signed my divorce papers. I think it was January 2019. And I was starting to feel good about myself. It was sad, but I was like, okay, I'm fine being alone the rest of my life. The next month, I met somebody at the gym.
Surprise!
Yeah, surprise. But it was when I was done with David. I had signed off on that completely. I was feeling good about myself, and I was at peace with myself, and I was at peace with being alone. And when you know it, and we're still together. And I don't know what happened with us, but yeah, so we'll see what happens. But the ding's still on.
That's it. I'm a firm believer that if you just take life day by day and look for the signs.
Yes.
Because there are always signs. And really think about how you would like to impact the world and how you would like to really experience the world and experience other people. Day by day, wonderful things happen for you.
Yes.
Even when they appear not to be so wonderful, they can end up being wonderful.
Right. I mean, when David asked for a divorce, it could have been, and it could have crumbled me. I'll never date again, and I would have been really hard on myself. And as it was, I had some guilt about leaving, him over there. But I had been working on myself every day, like you said. You take it day by day, and I was at a place where, all right, I'm lonely at times, but I'm alone and I'm okay, and I actually enjoy it. And I had my family, I had my nature, I had my writing, I had a great job. I still have so many wonderful things in my life with or without a guy, and luckily the guy that I'm dating now, he's the same way. We're a part of each other's life, but we're not the whole thing. We have our hobbies, we do things together. And so it's nice,
One of the things that I think is important to share is it's you cannot let somebody else define you.
No.
You have to define yourself and who you are.
Yes.
And what you want to do. And I want to thank you for being on this podcast, because this is 2021. My podcast is changing. It's changing, and it's growing exponentially in really unique ways. And it's all by design of somebody else. I'm just putting it out there and having people like you on and other folks. But it's growing, and people are resonating with the message that we need to get rid of hate, division, and fear.
I love it. I think it's wonderful.
And if we can do that, and we can recognize that we're all one, and that we're all together, and we're all in this together, then we can start to make the changes that we're going to have to make if we as a human race are going to make it.
Yes, definitely. That was one thing I saw when I was in the Middle East, that we're all the same, really. Even though we have different tastes and different preferences, we all want the same things, and there's more than one way to do something. There's more than one way to practice a religion. There's more than one way to, live in different, your housing, the way you dress, it's all different ways, but we all want the same things, and that's what really opened my eyes over there, especially with the kids and the way I learned a lot from them. So I'm so glad I came home with that different perspective. Yeah.
Well, you've learned so much, and I suspect that over time you're going to become a teacher. You already are a teacher, but you're going to become a teacher of life.
I would love it.
More so than an English teacher. I mean, I could benefit by taking English, which could be my second language, but I would be. But I really think that you're going to be a teacher of life, because you've experienced a lot, and you've got a great smile on your face.
Oh, thank you.
Life every day. and it's great. Even though this podcast has had its technical challenges with it, but it's cleared up nicely now, and it's great. As I like to say before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to tell the audience? Something from your heart?
Oh, I just think I believe in you. I believe that you can do anything that you really want to do. Just ask for some signs, ask for some guidance, and know that you can do it. And just, allow yourself to be led. And you'll get there. I think, and truly find ways to love yourself every day, because you're worth it, and we all are.
Oh,
It starts with that.
That is so cool. That is so
Yeah.
cool. I'm glad you said that, because I started this podcast a year and a half ago. I did a show called Positive Talk years ago, and then I was working, and I had to work because I needed to, eat. And so I was a Metro bus driver, so I drove buses around for 11 years.
Oh.
But my goal has always been, my passion has always been doing exactly this, talking to people like you. And so last February, just about a year ago now, I moved into a new place, promptly fell and ruptured my rotator cuff. And
No.
had to have surgery on that. And then while I was healing from that, my son got a puppy. And so I was babysitting the puppy, and the puppy got tangled up with my feet, and I fell over and ripped up my other arm.
Oh my God.
So I'm lying there on the floor going, and I became the epitome of I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't get up.
Oh, that's terrible. It's too bad.
But the reality is that the universe said, okay, he's going to continue to work unless we do this for him. So we're going to make it so he can't work anymore, so that I can do what I'm called to do, which is this.
I'm glad it worked out. I really am. I think it's wonderful. I really do.
It is great fun having you here, and I applaud you, and I applaud your spirit. It really is apparent that you understand who you are and where you're going, and you're allowing the universe to take you so that you can do what you need to do.
Yeah, always on to bigger and better things. I think that's what the universe does for us. I do. It has our back.
It does, and if we could all recognize that, then life would be a completely different place for all of us.
I know.
So we've been talking with Jennifer Benson, and give us your website again.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I would love for you to look at my website if you'd like. It's www.jenniferbenson, BENSON, author.com. And the same thing for my Facebook, Jennifer Benson, author. Yeah.
It's awesome. Will you come back?
I would love to anytime. I would love to come back, talk more ding stuff.
We're happy for our ding. So yeah,
I really am.
it's great fun talking to you. I just you people like you fill my soul.
Oh, I'm so glad. I likewise. I'm so honored to be on here, and thank you for picking me. I'm really glad. Thank you.
I didn't do it. The universe did.
It's true. Thank you, universe.
Exactly. So I want to thank you very much for being here, and it's just been a joy. And this podcast will go up on YouTube and My Independence Report, and it will get played because you're such a dynamic soul. And
thank you.
And I'm glad you found. Not only have you found happiness in love and in work and in what you're doing next, and you strike me as somebody that just says, "Okay, universe, what's next?"
That's right. The universe has my back. I finally figured it out. I just turned 50 this year, so after 50 years, I finally figured that out. So it's a good feeling.
It takes time sometimes, but eventually we get it together.
That's right.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
I'm really proud of you, and I'm sure your fella is also very appreciative of who you are.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He is good. Thank you.
Good. All righty. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for listening to My Independence Report. This is a show that we're doing from noon Monday through Friday, and then we're doing auxiliary podcasts. I'm doing like 8 or 9 a week now. I
Nice.
just love it. So it's great. It's great fun. So and we've got some real good people coming on in the near future. So it's just awesome. But you are a great way to kick it off, and I appreciate it.
Oh, yay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. And with that, I hope everybody take care now.
Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other because each other's all we got. See you next time on My Independence Report.